With August a mere few days away, we're coming up to the final 4 months of the year. Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord's projected full launch out of early access was moved back from March of this year to Q4 of 2021, which is also of this year. But this was widely looked at as a good move, as there are a number of systems in Bannerlord that still need a considerable amount of fixing and tweaking. In addition, there are features that have been shown off in dev diaries or were discussed in the time leading up to early access that are not in the game just yet. Now, with the final 4 months of the year ahead of us, I'm left asking the question of whether or not we'll see Bannerlord's full launch in 2021. And to be straight to the point and spare you guys from having to watch this entire video, my answer is no. I do not think that Bannerlord will have a 2021 launch. And to be totally honest, I'm completely fine with that. Terrell Worlds did state in the dev diary that mentioned a Q4 2021 launch that the release timeline was a tentative one, so no concrete date has been given to us. But in this video today, I want to discuss some missing features and some other evidence that really gives us all the credence we need to determine that the game shouldn't be released in 2021 at the very least. We've definitely seen the Cyberpunk 2077 treatment where a game shouldn't be released, but ends up being released anyway. And again, there's a lot of legality tied up in Cyberpunk's launch, so maybe that's an unfair comparison, but it does seem like more and more games are going through a weird adolescence once they are fully launched, where they aren't good until a number of patches hit the main game. And this is something that I hope Bannerlord dodges by staying in early access a bit longer to really finish baking, as it were. Before we get started, I would like to throw a quick disclaimer here. If you have not yet played Bannerlord, I think that the game is in an amazing place as far as gameplay to dive into, overall game stability, and you will easily sink 200 or 300 hours into it before you start to hit the same gameplay loop that a lot of us veterans have. So please don't take this video that the game is in a bad state. It's simply lacking a lot of endgame content that it really needs to keep its longevity. There still is a heap of amazing mods out there like Eagle Rising and even more that are in development, which we'll go into in a bit in this video. And if this was all you wanted or needed to hear on the subject though, and you've gotten my 2 cents, then you're free to shut the video down. I just wanted to be upfront with my opinion before going into some supporting notions about it. This will be a pretty unscripted video, and if you've been following closely with Bannerlord's development up to this point, it will not be new news, so I want to respect your time in that regard. This will be mainly for those waiting to get into Bannerlord or want a bit more info as to how things are progressing. Before we get started, as always guys, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It truly does help out any content creator you watch in some varying degree, depending on which one of those 3 actions you do. Also, I apologize ahead of time. My allergies are rocking me right now, so I might sound a little off, or nasally, or just terrible in general. But let's get started on my take on will Bannerlord launch in 2021. To start off, I want to go into a little bit about development. And development has slowed down significantly with version 1.6.0 hitting the beta branch. And 1.5.10 was put on the shelf in between 1.59 and 1.6, and then was finally fully released I think like 15 days ago. So there's been a lot of mix up with the versions jumping from 1.59 to 1.5.10 to 1.6.0. And that has seen a lot of, I guess, slowdown in the overall developmental process, because this has been about 2 months since 1.6.0 hit the initial beta branch. And we are still dealing with these kind of 3 juggling versions of the game. And if you use a lot of mods, 1.6.0 has made mods a little bit harder to jump into. But to put this into perspective, last year we went from version 1.4.0 on May 28th, 2020 to version 1.50 September 4th, 2020. That's a total of 5 major updates, including their beta branches and then going through subsequent testing and then being launched in less than 5 months. So development, like I said, has significantly slowed down. And I don't know if that's because of now the feature sets that are being added into the game are a little bit larger. When you look at the jump from 1.4.0 to 1.50, it was mainly fine-tuning things, adding things to the skills, fixing the perks within those skills, balancing out a lot of things here and there with the way that certain implementations were made. But it looks like 1.60 and higher will start to see larger improvements to the game from patch to patch. Now I say that knowing that the jump from 1.510 to 1.60 was a little bit more of a disappointment than I think a lot of other Tail Worlds, or at least Bannerlord fans, were expecting. We were expecting this massive change to the game in 1.60, something that was completely unrecognizable, and that wasn't necessarily the case. It doesn't necessarily also mean that those things aren't coming. It just means that a lot of us, I think, were let down on the overall impact of 1.60. It was still a solid patch that brought a lot of cool stuff and also hyped us up for some things. But I think that overall, the feature sets that were delivered in 1.60 were not that amazing for the development time it took to get there. So that is a big kind of initial piece of evidence for me, is that development time has slowed down. So in my opinion, I thought that 2.0 would be the thing that they would launch under. And if we were looking at that original dev update where they said, hey, yeah, things were going to take till Q4, I thought we were going to hit that same pace of releasing. I do know there are a number of Turkish holidays, and a lot of people take summer vacations over in parts of Europe and what have you. So we might be looking at that right now, right? Like, a lot of this is kind of slowing down that developmental cycle. And that's true of other companies too. When you take a look at stuff like Paradox has slowed down the development during summer so they can ramp up here at the beginning of, or I'm sorry, the end of Q3, beginning of Q4. It's tale as old as time, right? But it is still kind of worth mentioning that development has slowed down for a lot of other companies, and it makes sense that it would happen here for Tail Worlds as well. So I do think that that would mean that we're definitely going to be looking at something more in 2022 for Bannerlord. Now, on the subject of development, there's also the conversation of features. And there's still quite a lot of features that are missing from the game. And these are just simply features that they've mentioned. There's also features that kind of leave a little bit to be desired, and I'll talk about that at the end of this section. But firstly, we know the dynamic battle system, or the battle terrain system as it is called by Tail Worlds, is coming. They teased that in development update number 7, and we have still not seen it in the game. We have seen like, hey, you know, this is what it's going to look like as far as where the terrain is going to dynamically jump into a specific battle. Like, hey, if you got engaged on a battle next to a bridge, you are now going to have a bridge battle guaranteed. Hey, if you got involved in a battle next to some mountains, well, hey, here is a set mountain that reflects that mountain range that you're next to. They had said that, hey, if you jump into a mountainous battle, you'll get a random mountainous map. They're going to make it so that it actually fits where you're at, so it makes a lot more contextual sense, which is awesome. But that is a feature that is missing that we were supposed to have, or at least we thought we were getting in 1.60. Another big one is keep battles. And that one was actually teased quite a bit ago. And I believe in development update number 6, which was in December of 2020. So that's a whole 7 months, almost now 8 months out, and we have not seen keep battles. And keep battles are a missing part as part of a kind of dynamic and awesome evolution of this Siege overall battle system. Which brings me on to my next note of sieges in single player seem to be overly lacking as far as the AI's management of siege equipment and pathing. The nav mesh for a lot of the older original early access maps seem to be really lacking, because I'd say on the newer maps, I've noticed that sieges work out a lot better. The AI seems to know the pathing direction to go up ladders properly. They don't get simply stuck in the portcullis of several gates or moving through the walls. They don't just get hung up on a random weird level of, like, you know, sometimes you look at the wall and the floor goes like, oh, it's going flat, and then it has like a quarter step up. For some reason, the AI will just pull that little quarter step. So it seems in the newer maps, those nav meshes are a lot better, and they actually subsequently go through everything, not a big issue. So it seems to me that they need to kind of retroactively fix a lot of the old nav meshes to get it up to par. Maybe that's something that a mod can do, but I hope that the devs would take care of that. Also, smithing has a 3-part rework planned. We just got a massive overhaul to it in 1.60 that did a lot of really great things. But they've also talked about smithing having essentially 2 more planned improvements being done to it. So I wouldn't expect smithing to even be near finished until at the very least version 1.62. Another missing feature here is multiplayer mode is just, when I say in shambles, I'm not saying that it's completely non-existent. It obviously exists, and they do make improvements and passes to it every single update, but there are no private dedicated servers, and as thus the multiplayer crowd has really just died off from the initial portions of the game. I remember when this game first came out with its early access, I was jumping into captain modes almost every day with my friends. It was a just huge community, but it has since kind of waned because there is far less support for it. And Tailworlds has even said, hey, multiplayer is not our huge focus right now. We want to fix up single player, then we will jump into multiplayer. And there are some things that are in multiplayer that you cannot use in single player. Spear bracing, which has just now been added in for the player to use in single player, still is not a unit action. Like, you can't say, hey, all my spearmen do a spear brace to take a cavalry charge. So we still have some unit dynamics that are not in the game just yet. Plenty of features with stuff like that that is not said to have been in a development update or something like that, but we know it to be coming in some way, shape, or form. Even taking a look at workshops. Workshops have a level on them. We don't know what that level means. They have a number of other values that we still don't know what they mean. So it tells me that the workshop system as is in Bannerlord is feature bare. It's still lacking a lot of what seems to be intended for its system that is just not there yet. And again, they have not mentioned this in development update or anything like that, but there's enough context clues within the UI and how the actual workshops work themselves to tell us that there's probably a lot more under the hood to these things than has been either let on or what we have access to just yet. So it's clear to me that there are a lot of features missing that have either been discussed or are evident from clues left within the files and what have you. One of the last big subjects I want to talk about now is mods. And mods have really kind of, I would argue, Warband's increased longevity is there because of mods and also the multiplayer scene, right? And that is definitely the case now for Bannerlord. Bannerlord's gameplay loop has gotten very stale for those of us that have been here from early access on, right? We're all pretty much sour with doing the same exact loop when it comes to the vanilla game. But there are mods like Eagle Rising, Colorado Reformed, a whole ton of things that have really livened up Bannerlord's early access process. And it really is a testament to the developers of these mods because it is a headache to constantly do the development for them for each and every patch because there's no official support system. But the nice thing here is with version 1.60, a lot of the developers of mods have shown me that they have implemented the beginning of the Steam Workshop integration into the base files for Bannerlord. And that is a gross generalization on my part as someone who does not understand that. So hopefully someone who is a mod who is a developer of mods can explain that a little bit further, but it definitely looks like we'll be getting a Steam Workshop integration quite soon for Bannerlord. Hopefully in the next like 2 or 3 beta branches, and they've even said that they are hoping to get that done before the game leaves early access. So I think that once we get that, that will be a really good solid sign of things getting closer to a launch. I don't think that it is the sign, of course, but I think that it's huge because if you get at least the mods on a consistent upgradable development platform, it makes the game a lot easier for, you know, these modders to mod with, but also it makes the game easier for you, the end user, to modify. So while that is not necessarily an indication of the game's launch in 2022, it's still something worth bringing up in this video, I feel, because it is a huge portion of why I don't think the game is ready for a 2021 launch. Because until that mod platform is stabilized, which is a huge portion of the game, I think that we won't be seeing that launch in the near future. But of course, with that coming, I think that is a very strong positive sign. So all in all, those are the big things that I wanted to cover in this video. I wanted to talk about some of the development slowing down as of late. I wanted to discuss a lot of these features that are missing, and I wanted to talk about how mods have really made up the central portion of Bannerlord and kept its longevity thus far, and it probably will do so into its launch and then ad infinitum. So a lot of this information, like I said before, is not brand new. This is not blowing your mind open if you've been following along with the game. If you're on the forums, on the Reddit, you've been playing it nonstop, you're probably watching this video going, yeah, dude, I know. And again, that's not necessarily why I made this video. It's just to, again, shed the light on how the development of the game is going thus far, and hopefully you now know as the end user kind of where Bannerlord is right now and how unlikely we are to get that 2021 launch and why I think that's actually quite okay. I'm all right with a 2022 launch happening, and I think a lot of people are, as long as the game becomes more feature complete by that time. If 2022 comes, they say they're going to launch the game, and the difference between the launch version of the game and 1.60 is not substantial, that will be a very shitty moment. I think a lot of us will be very salty at that. But I've talked to a number of the actual Tailworlds developers. They do have a lot of things planned. I know that. Obviously, they can't tell me those things of like, hey, this is what's coming. Don't tell anyone. I'm not under any kind of NDA, so they can't tell me anything of any substantial worth. But they have said that, hey, some of these things are coming as far as workshop reworks and so on and so forth during my streams. So I know at least that a lot of these features that do seem barren or do seem like they are missing a lot of constituent parts have those parts coming because they've at least mentioned them in forum posts, my streams, or discussions on other platforms. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Go ahead and let me know what your opinion is about Bannerlord right now. Do you think it's going to launch in 2021? Do you think it's going to launch in 2022? Do you think it's going to launch ever? Plenty of sentiment should be shared about the game. The developers do read forum posts and Reddits, and they are all over the comment section of a lot of the more prolific streamers and YouTubers of, or I guess Twitch streamers is a thing, of Bannerlord. So let your opinion be known. But like I've always said, guys, if you are going to let your opinion be known, be respectful about it. You know, these are people on the other end. If you have a negative opinion about something, absolutely share it. But like I said, be constructive. Deliver a way that is going to help them grow the game rather than make them go, all right, well, this is just a negative rant. We have to dismiss this because it can't help us grow. It's just going to weigh down our sentiment. As much positive feedback or as much critical feedback is going to help them grow Bannerlord in the way that we want it. And we've seen that happen up to this point. We've seen a lot of skills change that I don't think were planned until a later portion of the game or what have you. So I know that they read this feedback, and I think it's very critical for their research or for their developmental process. So provide as much as you can in any platform or on any any platform that you can. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.